Hello again, my little pyromaniacs, and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morty and Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be continuing to look at the new datasheets for the 10th edition Imperial Guard Index. This time we shall be reviewing the Hellhound, the quintessential fast tank of the Astra Militarum. This iconic vehicle has been the favourite of many a commander over the years. But how does it stack up in 10th edition? Well, to find out, let's burn a mount, sniff the Promethean fumes, and dive right into today's episode. As is tradition, let us begin with an overview of what the hell the Hellhound actually is. This is for our new 40k players, perhaps who've just got in with 10th edition, or our veteran players who might be exploring Guard for the first time. Historically, the Hellhound can be considered a medium tank, with its weight class sitting somewhere in between that of a Sentinel and a Leman Russ. Built on the ever-reliable and ubiquitous Chimera chassis, the Hellhound brings durability, speed, and firepower in one neat package. It's also a highly flexible vehicle as well, thanks to the variety of weapon options it's picked up over the years. It may have started out with the Inferno cannon, limiting it to an anti-light infantry role, but it now can also be equipped with a chem cannon, meaning it can melt through armored infantry too, or the melter cannon, giving it anti-vehicle capabilities too. Unfortunately, the Hellhound has rarely been seen in competitive lists. This is because whilst it is a useful and certainly usable vehicle, it kind of sits in an awkward spot. It's not quite as cheap and spammable as the Sentinels, which bring similar firepower to it, but it's not quite as durable or as hard-hitting as the Leman Russ. Therefore, most Guard players have tended to gravitate towards Leman Russes if they need proper big punchy units, or Sentinels if they need cheap armor. But is that still the case in 10th edition? Well, good news everyone, because I am happy to report for the first time in a long time, it looks like the Hellhound has found its place and is going to be a fantastic addition to your Guard multiple, and one that you're definitely going to want to get out onto the battlefield. A bold claim to be sure, but a welcome one. And let's back it up by reviewing the Hellhound stat line, beginning with its unit profile. It boasts a movement value of 10 inches, and yes, this is 2 inches less than its 9th edition iteration, but it is the standard issue movement value that most Guard vehicles seem to have been equipped with. Things start looking up though when we get to the toughness, which has been increased to a whopping 10. That is really big, very important, because it starts putting it on par with the Leman Russ in terms of its toughness. This might seem crazy, the Leman Russ is toughness 11, but the Hellhound is only toughness 10, but think about it for a moment. Many weapons that we've seen previewed in 10th edition so far have either gone up to about strength 9 or they've jumped up to strength 12. We've had things like Plasma and Melter come in at strength 8, strength 9. We've had Crack Grenades come in at strength 9. Autocannons, strength 9. Crack Rocket, strength 9. All of these things wound the Hellhound on 5s, and they wound the Leman Russ on 5s as well. Then you jump over to las cannons, which are your kind of standard go-to anti-tank profile, and there's loads of las cannon equivalents out there, and they've got a strength of 12, which wounds the Hellhound on a 3, but it also wounds the Leman Russ on a 3. So against the vast majority of special weapons, there's little difference between a Hellhound and a Russ, and this also translates into small arms as well. When you've got things like your las gun equivalents and your bolters and even heavy bolters, they're going to wound both of these vehicles on 6s. And this only continues when you start looking at its save profile, because the Hellhound has gone up to an incredible 2+ save. That is the same as the Russ. That is the same as the Dawn. That is the same as the goddamn Baneblade. I don't know what they've done. They've been welding loads of extra armored plates onto this thing, but a 2+ save is brilliant. It's kind of crazy because it harkens back to older editions of 40k where the Hellhound was described as an up-armored version of the Chimera chassis. And when you had the old armor values, it did get a slightly higher value than your typical Chimera. But going up to a Save 2 Plus is just wild and really a big bonus for the Hellhound. It's also got that new and improved wound characteristic of 11, something that we saw it gain in the 9th edition codex, which it's kept going into 10th. Overall, the only real difference against the majority of weapons that you're going to encounter between a Hellhound and some of the other heavier armor is simply that wound value. Now that could make a big difference. When you're looking at something like autocannons, which do 3 damage each, it's only going to take 4 autocannon wounds to kill a Hellhound, whereas it will take 5 to kill a Rust. That is a 25% increase. So it's not going to be quite as mega durable as something like a Rust and the other heavy armor, but definitely it's going to have a noticeable toughness increase and durability boost. But it's not just the tankiness of everyone's favorite flame tank which has been improved. Many of the weapon systems have also received a good glow up, or at the very least been appropriately translated into the new edition. Let's begin by taking a look at that classic Inferno cannon. Now straight up, it now has ignores cover. That is a big boost, and it's essentially kept its old profile on top of that. 18-inch range, strength 6, damage 1, and it's kept the AP -2. In an age where everyone's AP seems to be being reduced, the fact that it kept AP -2 and got ignores cover means it's better than ever for burning things out. Even Terminators are going to be reduced down to a 4+ save when they're hiding in cover against the Inferno cannon. The only problem with it is 2d6 attacks. That makes it kind of swingy. I would have preferred to see d6 + 6, and I would have even taken that and had the AP reduced down to 1. Next up, we've got the Chem Cannon. Now, this is a little bit more specialized. If your meta is full of Custodes or Marines, you may want to consider the Chem Cannon over the Inferno Cannon. This is because whilst it has a reduced range of 12 inches, and whilst it only does d6 + 1 shots, it is still AP 2. It is now a full damage 2, means it 1 pops intercessors, and most importantly, it's anti-infantry 2+, meaning that even your super heavy infantry, like your Custodes, Alaris, Terminators, are not safe from the Chem Cannon. However, if I could just put the brakes on the hype train for a moment, I don't think I recommend the Chem Cannon. In fact, it's been nerfed from 9th edition. It used to have D3 + 3 attacks, which made it ridiculously reliable. It's lost that. It used to be AP 3. It's lost that. And unlike the Inferno Cannon, even though it's Torrent, it doesn't ignore cover, meaning that heavy infantry in many cases are actually going to have a better save against it than the Inferno. On the other hand, I quite like the look of the new Melter Cannon. It seems like it might be decent for popping enemy light to medium vehicles, and could even have some play into very heavy infantry. With its strength of 9, AP -4 and D6 damage, which goes up to D6 + 4 if you can get within half range, it has the potential to really tear big chunks out of the enemy. The only disadvantage is it does have a shorter range now of 18 inches, and it does only have D3 shots at ballistic skill 4+. This is somewhat mitigated by the fact that you can benefit from the blast special rule. So if you're shooting it against some Terminators, you're going to be D3 + 1, and if it's a big brick of Terminators, you'll be D3 + 2. And on top of this, it pairs very nicely with the multi-melter, which essentially gives you an extra 2 shots. So wherever you're going, you're going to be looking at D3 + 2, and you could start getting up to D3 + 4 when you combine the melter cannon with the multi-melter. Regardless of which weapon you choose to go with, both of them benefit from the new and fantastic Flush Them Out ability. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, select one enemy unit that was hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, that unit cannot have the benefit of cover. Considering how prolific the benefit of cover seems to be in 10th, especially with things like battlefield debris, having the capability of removing that from an enemy unit, and if you're taking several Hellhounds, being able to remove that from multiple enemy units is really big. Remember, GW has tried to reduce the lethality of the game. They've taken away a lot of AP and they've added a lot of cover. But the Hellhound kind of just gives that the middle finger, because the Inferno Cannon and the Melter Cannon have kept their really high AP. And not only that, but they're now essentially taking cover away from everyone. So it feels like the Guard didn't get the memo about the game being less lethal. What I really like about Flush Them Out is it adds a layer of depth and also makes the Hellhound a little bit more take all comers. Think about it. Imagine you're running the Inferno Cannon variant. You've kitted it out to deal with light infantry because you've got a whole heavy flamer on there as well. Suddenly you get to a tournament and you come across Nidzilla or some sort of armored list. Now normally your Hellhound would be struggling, not getting light infantry to burn. But thanks to Flush Them Out, even if your opponent is sticking all of those big things in cover and cackling madly to themselves, you don't care. Your Hellhound can remove that cover. Or maybe you've turned up with the Melter version and suddenly you find yourself playing against a Horde army. Sure, you've got the blast rule, but even so, it might not quite have that volume of fire that you're looking for to get the job done. No matter, that big blob of enemy termagants hiding in the ruins, I'm going to flush them out with my Melter and my artillery is going to blow them up. However you slice it, the Hellhound is bringing something to the table and it's adding value to your army list. Okay, there's one more thing I want to mention about the Hellhound. If you're a new player and you're struggling to pick a loadout, do I go with that Melter or that Inferno Cannon? I suggest you go with the Inferno Cannon and you stick a whole heavy flamer on the Hellhound. There's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, I feel like the Inferno Cannon and heavy flamer, because they hit automatically, it kind of makes the Hellhound a little bit more self-contained. Orders for your vehicles are kind of scarce in the 10th edition index. In fact, you've only got tank commanders and the Lord Solar which do them. So you might have a lot of tanks, but you might not have enough orders for them. And your vehicles like your Rogel Dawns and your Baneblades, your Liam Russes are probably going to take priority. That means if you're going around with the Melter Cannon, sure, it's a pretty punchy gun, but if it's only hitting on a 4+ because you haven't got a cheeky take aim around, an order to make it hit better, then you may find that it's struggling to connect. If it doesn't connect, then Flush Them Out can't be triggered because you need to hit the enemy. But the Inferno Cannon doesn't need an order. It hits automatically. It doesn't need take aim to be good. And so you can take your Lord Solar or your tank commander, focus their orders on those really big tanks, and just have the Hellhound run around, having a great time, doing its thing, and not needing anyone else to support it. And for the second reason, if we can just zoom out for a moment, take a look at the big picture, the Hellhound's always been known as a flame tank. It's always been an anti-infantry one. And the Chem Cannon and the Melter Cannon are kind of these cool extra options it can take. But I feel like the Inferno Cannon's always been given the better treatment by GW. It's always kind of been the weapon that they've favored. And for Guard commanders, it's always been sort of the go-to. So even if in future editions, if the Melter Cannon ends up being better or the Chem Cannon ends up being the quote-unquote meta choice, I feel like the Inferno Cannon is the safe bet. It's kind of like your Lieben Russ El Clasico, the Battle Cannon, the Las Cannon, the Heavy Bolters. It's never the best option, but it's also never the worst. It's always just good. Of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in that comment section below. What do you think about the Hellhound now exploding on a 6, but having Deadly Demise D6? Is that better or worse? Are you planning on fielding any of these things in your army now they've got that improved stat line? Get it all down in that comment section. I'd love to read the community's thoughts on this unit. Of course, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. If you found today's video particularly fun and informative, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon. By supporting the channel, you will not only help me create more Warhammer 40k videos, but also unlock a whole host of perks for yourself. The biggest of which being access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with over 1,500 active people. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for discussing tactics, army list, 10th edition, hobbying, painting, and even a pretty spicy meme area as well. And I'd just like to take a moment to say a big thank you to all of the latest channel members. So thank you to Scott Collins, Bad Bet, Daniel W, D-Day, Longcaster, Dragon Turtle, Lightning Stab, Rory Rochendale, Rev, Dan Mack, Brandon Ledford, M. Dole Stout, Andy Ramone, The Lilliputian, Effects, Matt Valentine, Sam Fisk, Ermit, Grim Byron, Lucy Bodham, Liam Bridgman, James Schaefer, Disman Pickman, Ill-Advised Records, Jonathan Corey, King Tiger the Great, Jono Williams, and The Raging Fury. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to shout out the latest Patreons as well, so a big thank you to James Kiddy, Apollo Stratus, Meg Sumner, The Dark Warfare, Benjamin Hilker, Charles Hartman, The Elder Kine, MP Bros 20, Dare Fish, Jeffrey Hill, Digit, Harsig Ruman, Conan Larkin, Daware 7, Ewan Furs, Jesse Tucker, Jonathan Vega, Franz Calamari, Michael Straub, and Legendary Hot Dog. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive, heartfelt thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ross Miller, Sulphur Trombone, John Stubbs, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys. Your incredible and generous support is a huge part of what allows me to do Mordian Glory full time. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.